He has been screaming for 11 years and no one has heard him, not even once. He knows the ship's name, Enduring Lament. Strike cruiser, Lamenters Chapter, commissioned in the 36th year of the Badab War's aftermath, as part of the rebuilding that never quite finished, because the Lamenters never quite finished anything. They endured. That was the word. That had always been the word. He had believed in that word once, had worn it the way he wore the yellow of his armor, with the specific unflinching pride of a man who understood that pride in a lamenter was not arrogance. It was defiance. It was the refusal to concede the universe's point. He no longer wears anything. There is no wearing inside a sarcophagus. There is only an interface. He knows the ship's heading. None. The drive manifolds have been cold since the 3rd year. He measured their output decay himself in the early months, when he still believed someone would come, when he still filed internal notation reports, as if someone would eventually read them. The reports are still there. 11 years of daily entries, filed to a command network with 0 active recipients, transmitted on frequencies that bounce back from nothing. A correspondence with silence. He has kept it up because stopping feels like something he does not have a word for yet, and in his experience, the things without words are the most dangerous. He knows the crew complement 0. He does not know exactly how long he has been drifting. This is the thing. This is the specific, intimate thing that lives beneath all the other things, that he returns to in the long intervals between sensor sweeps, when the tactical processing systems have nothing to process and begin cycling through their contingency functions. The Enduring Lament's chronometer is wrong. It has been wrong. He identified the error in the 1st year, buried it in a notation file, and has watched it compound every cycle since. Several seconds of drift per day. At 11 years of accumulated drift, he cannot tell you what time it is on the ship to within approximately 4 hours. He cannot tell you what day it is to within approximately 19 days. He cannot tell you with certainty whether the duration of this silence is 11 years or 10 years and 8 months, or 11 years and 4 months, and that uncertainty is not an abstraction. It has weight. It presses against the interface points, where the sarcophagus connects to whatever remains of his nervous system, and it whispers that time is already a kind of horror, and that he is living inside its particular variety of it. The Lamenters have always known this. They know it better than any other chapter. Cursed by fate, his chaplain said at the interment. Said it the way you say a thing that is true and terrible, and that you must say anyway because there is nothing else to say. We are cursed by fate, and we endure. He had believed that too. He had believed it was enough. He does not know what he believes now. He has 11 years of notation entries and no beliefs. He has sensor data. He has atmospheric readings for an empty ship. He has spatial coordinates for a region of void that no one is navigating toward. He has the tactical feed from his chassis systems, which are functioning at 63% capacity after years of minimal power cycling, which means his optical resolution is reduced. His movement systems have not been activated in 4 months and 17 days, approximately, and his Vox arrays are operational, but are receiving nothing except the specific silence of deep space, which is not actually silent, which has a sound if you listen long enough. A kind of pressure that is not sound, but which the nerve cluster interface translates into something almost audible, like the memory of a sound, like the shape a word leaves in the air after the voice that spoke it is gone. He listens to it. He has become very good at listening to it, at irregular intervals. The system documentation describes this as standard cognition maintenance, memory engram cycling, recommended frequency, daily, purpose, prevention of neural atrophy in interred subjects. The chassis feeds him a memory, not a dream. He wants to be precise about this. because the distinction matters in ways he cannot entirely articulate. A dream is passive. A dream is the mind doing something to itself in the dark, reordering material, processing, softening edges. This is not that. This is the machine retrieving a filed record and playing it back at full fidelity, every sensory channel, every tactical overlay, as if it is happening again. As if he is there again. He is always there again. The world's name was Sorrow's Reach, which should have told them something and told them nothing, because by the time the Lamenters arrived, the heretic Astartes had held it for 2 years, and the imperial citizens who had named it were long past caring about the name or anything else. Rubble. That is what Sorrow's Reach was by the time the Fourth Company made planetfall. Rubble and ash, and the specific quality of silence that settles over a place after it has heard too many human voices and will not hear them again. He had deployed 46 brothers. He was the 47th. 47 Lamenters, yellow armor grey with ash, pushing through ruins toward a coordinates package that Command had marked as high priority. A signal source, something alive in the rubble, something broadcasting on a frequency that was not quite any known frequency, but was close enough to Imperial encryption that it warranted investigation. The memory stops here, always. Not because the machine runs out of data. The data is there. He can feel it archived behind the cutoff point, dense and heavy and sealed. The machine stops here because this is the point where something in the engram record is flagged, restricted. He flagged it himself during the interment process, when the tech marine asked him if there were any memory sequences he wished to seal for the protection of chapter security. He had said yes. He had named the sequence. He has been grateful for that decision every day since, and he has been destroying himself with it every day since. And both things are true, and the machine cycling through the permitted portion of the memory every few hours does not help, does not provide the catharsis that the apothecaries promised it would, does not allow processing or resolution or peace. It just shows him the same 47 soldiers moving through the same ash-grey rubble over and over, the same tactical overlays, the same Vox chatter. 2 squad left, Captain. 3 squad reports movement. Grid 7. Kale, keep your spacing. That one always. Kale, keep your spacing. In his own voice, clipped and precise, the voice of a man who is managing a situation and does not have the luxury of fear. He had been afraid. He wants the record to reflect that. He had been afraid from the moment they hit atmosphere. The memory cuts, the chassis processes, the void hums its non-sound. He files another notation entry. Day 4017, approximately. Chronometer drift, uncorrected. Cognition maintenance cycle completed. No new data. Monitoring continues. He noticed the radiation shift on a day he cannot accurately number, which is to say, it could have been 3 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, and the distinction matters for analysis, and he cannot perform accurate analysis, which is itself a kind of horror for a man trained to analyze. Below the threshold that would have triggered an automated alert, he checked, after he identified it manually, and confirmed the ship's passive sensors were not flagging it. He was flagging it. His chassis sensor array, operated at reduced capacity, but still calibrated to the standard his tech marine had set at interment, was detecting something in the ship's background radiation that had not been there before, or had been there, and he had not noticed. He cannot rule out the second option, which troubles him more than the first. It does not read as drive emissions. It does not read as stellar interference. The local star is 3 light-years distant, and its radiation signature is well documented in his navigational files. It does not read as any catalogued source in his system's reference library, and his reference library is extensive, and he has been through it twice. What it reads as is irregular. What it reads as is variable in a non-random pattern. Every cycle, the signature is slightly different, not randomly different, consistently progressing, as if something is moving through the ship on a route that explores different sections in sequence, as if something is measuring the internal spaces. He has been tracking it. He has 17 cycles of data points now, each one confirming the pattern, each one suggesting that whatever is generating this signature has covered, at this rate of progress, approximately 40% of the ship's internal volume. He has not assigned a cause. He has assigned a notation designation. In his private system, the one he does not file to the dead command network, the one that is only ever read by him, he calls it the patient thing, because patience is the dominant quality the data suggests, not urgency, not the frenzied movement of something that has found itself in an unfamiliar environment and is panicking, the slow, methodical progress of something that has time, something that knows it has time because it knows or has assessed that there is nothing on this ship that can stop it and no reason to hurry. In his experience, and he has 39 years of combat experience to draw from, patience in an opponent is the single most dangerous quality there is, more dangerous than strength or speed or numbers. Patience means planning. Patience means certainty. Patience means the patient thing is not finding its way through the ship. It is making sure of something. He detects the Vox signal at 0217 ship time, approximately. It arrives on a Lamenter command frequency, encrypted, chapter-specific, requiring a command-grade cipher key to transmit. The cipher key is held by chapter officers of captain rank and above. He is the only captain on this ship. He has been the only captain on this ship for 11 years. The signal lasts 4 seconds. He runs a decryption query. The cipher matches. The content resolves cleanly. No corruption, no degradation, as if the signal originated from a transmitter 2 meters away instead of... He runs the source analysis while the content is still processing, already knowing what the source analysis will show, not wanting it to show what it is going to show. The source analysis completes. The signal originated from the crew quarters. Deck 7, Section 4, the residential block that has been sealed, depressurized, and without power since the 3rd year of the drift. The block he sealed himself after the last of the ship's automated functions cycled down. The block that has been as dead as anything on a dead ship in the deep void for 11 years. The content is a single word. Aldric. Not his rank, not captain, not his chapter designation, not any formal address that could be assigned to a distress beacon or a pre-programmed emergency broadcast, or any mechanical explanation he can construct quickly enough to keep his nerve cluster interfaces from responding to this the way they are currently responding to this. His name, his given name, the name that only his brothers used, and only his brothers when formality was done with, and it was just men, and his brothers are dead. He files the signal data. He cross-references it against every catalog transmission type in his library. He finds no match. He runs a diagnostic on his own sensor systems, looking for the malfunction that would explain this, and the diagnostic returns fully green across every function. The signal was real. The crew quarters spoke his name. He has not activated his chassis movement systems in 4 months and 17 days, approximately. The joint actuators grind when he initiates the start sequence, a sound he can feel through the interface rather than hear, a vibration in whatever remains of his jaw and skull, an intimacy that should not exist between a man and a machine, and only exists because the boundary between them was dissolved long ago, and neither he nor the machine has a clear record of when. The chassis responds, slowly. The lumen arrays power up at reduced output, casting pale light across the hold where he has been standing, motionless, for months. He looks at the hold for the first time in months, looks at it with moving optical systems rather than passive sensor data, and he notes, with the precision of a man for whom precision is the last remaining dignity, that it looks exactly as it did. Nothing has come here. Nothing is here. He begins to move toward Deck 7. The void hums. The chronometer compounds its error. The patient thing in its radiation signature pauses in its survey of whatever section it is currently measuring. He does not think about whether it has noticed him moving. He moves anyway. He is a lamenter. He has never learned to stop. Chapter 2. What the ship remembers. The door to the crew quarters was already open. It had been sealed from the outside. There is no mechanism by which it could have opened itself. And yet, he stands in the corridor for a long time before he enters. This is not caution. He has assessed the tactical geometry of the doorway already. The corridor approach, the sight lines beyond the threshold, the atmospheric reading which confirms the interior has somehow repressurized, which is itself a fact requiring an explanation he does not have, because the repressurization system for Deck 7, Section 4, has been offline for 9 years, and there is no atmosphere reserve connected to this block, and the readings should show vacuum, and they do not. They show standard atmospheric composition, slightly elevated humidity, temperature 4 degrees above the ship's ambient cold. Something has been breathing in there. He is not standing here because of caution. He is standing here because he has been alone for 11 years, and he has learned in that time that the moments just before you find out something are the last moments in which certain kinds of hope are still possible. He is not a man who hopes easily. He has not been a man who hopes easily since long before the sarcophagus. But there is a specific, narrow hope available to him in this corridor. The hope that when he enters, there will be an explanation. A mechanical explanation. A failure mode he has not accounted for. A sealed atmosphere pocket that has been slowly equilibrating. Some interaction between the ship's residual systems that has produced this anomaly without intent, without agency, without the alternative. He enters. The lumen arrays push their reduced light into the space, pale and yellowish, the color of old bone, and the crew quarters resolve around him in sections as he moves. 40 bunks in 2 rows, personal storage lockers mounted above each bunk, 1 per crew member, standard strike cruiser configuration. The iconography of the Lamenters on every surface, the bleeding heart, rendered in faded pigment on the bulkheads, repeated in the small personal devotional plaques that the crew had affixed beside their bunks, the yellow and black chapter colors gone gray with 11 years of cold and dark, the honor rolls, names of the fallen, updated by the ship's chaplain before every deployment, a Lamenter tradition so old its origin is debated. The last update is 11 years stale. The names end where the crew ended, a list that simply stops. He knows this room. He walked through it in the early months, when he was still maintaining patrol routes through the ship, on the logic that movement was discipline, and discipline was the only structure available to him. He knows how it looked then. He is comparing it now to how it looks now and finding the differences, and the differences are the lockers. Every locker is open. He crosses to the nearest bunk. The locker above it hangs wide, the small magnetic seal that should hold it closed clearly disengaged. Not forced, not broken, disengaged as if someone pressed the release in the normal way. Inside the locker, the crew members' personal effects are undisturbed. A small devotional icon, a folded letter, the ink long faded to illegibility, a lock of hair in a sealed vial, the way soldiers sometimes kept them, from wives or children, or the people they were trying to remember the shape of across interstellar distances. He looks at the inside of the locker door. The name is scratched into the metal at eye height, deep enough that whatever made it applied significant force. The letters are in high Gothic, formal script, each one carved with deliberate care. The scratch marks at the edges of each stroke suggest they were made by something narrow. A blade tip, or, as he noted in the outline he is already constructing in his notation system, possibly a fingernail applied with inhuman pressure and patience. The name is not the crew member's name. Brother Arcantale, 4th Company, Lamenters. Killed in action, Sorrow's Reach. He moves to the next locker. Brother Doran Mast, 4th Company, Lamenters. Killed in action, Sorrow's Reach. He does not rush. He moves down the row with the methodical pace of a man who is collecting data and has not yet allowed himself to understand what the data means, because understanding it prematurely will compromise his ability to collect the rest of it, and he needs the rest of it. He needs all of it. He needs to know how many names there are and whether the count is what he already suspects it is, and he needs to know this with the certainty of evidence rather than the certainty of dread, because evidence can be filed and dread cannot, and filing things is the only power he has left. 47 lockers. He counts them twice. Then he reads every name. All 47 names are names from his company. Every man who deployed to Sorrow's Reach. Every man who died in the retreat, or died because of the retreat, or died in the months after. The ones the after-action reports attributed to subsequent deployments, but which he has always known, in the private notation that only he reads, were deaths he authored the moment he gave the order. His men, his dead. He is at the 47th locker when the memory protocol initiates. He has time to notice that it is wrong before it takes him. The standard cognition cycle has a signature, a brief processing pause, a slight shift in the tactical overlay as the chassis transitions from active monitoring to engram playback. He knows this signature the way he knows the sound of his own thoughts. This is not it. This is faster, deeper, bypassing the standard initiation sequence entirely, going directly to the engram archive and going further into it than the standard cycle is permitted to reach, past the daily retrieval permission level, past the restricted zone boundary he set himself at interment. He tries to countermand it. The notation is filed in 0.3 seconds. Memory protocol anomaly. Unauthorized archive access. Attempting override. The override fails. He is already there. Sorrow's Reach. The coordinates his tactical overlay is displaying are precise. He is standing 42 meters from the signal source, in the ruins of what the planetary survey logs had designated a civic structure, its walls reduced to chest height, the floors buried under accumulated debris. The ash is still falling. It falls the way snow falls on worlds he barely remembers, soft and patient and relentless, coating the yellow of his armor in grey. His squad dispositions are live on the overlay. 46 green runes distributed through 300 meters of ruined city, each one moving with the controlled purposefulness of a unit that trusts its captain. Kale on his left flank, calling spacing adjustments. Tail and mast on the right, confirmation icons pulsing as they acknowledge. 46 brothers, his brothers, walking into something he already knows is wrong. The signal source is directly ahead. He has 15 meters to cover. He covers 12 of them. Then he stops, because Brother Harad stops. Harad is ahead of him, point position, which is where Harad always was, because Harad had been with the chapter for 60 years and moved through hostile terrain with the unconscious efficiency of something that had long since made peace with the idea of what waited at the end of any given corridor. Voss trusted Harad the way you trust a piece of ground you have walked on 1,000 times, without thinking about it, without examining the trust. Harad stops walking. He stands completely still, in the middle of the ash-covered floor, with 7 meters between himself and the signal source. Voss issues no order. Harad does not respond to unissued orders. Voss watches because watching is all he can do in the 1.3 seconds before Harad does the next thing. Harad turns around. The memory protocol cuts. The ash, the ruins, the overlay, the green runes. Gone. The crew quarters. The open lockers. The pale lumen light. The name scratched on the inside of the 47th locker door, which is the name he was reading when the memory initiated, which is therefore the last thing his optical sensors fed him before the engram took over, and he is looking at it again now. His name, Aldric Voss. He does not move. He files a notation entry, memory protocol anomaly, engram access extended beyond permitted zone, cut off prior to complete prohibited sequence. Harad. He turned. I have never reviewed this sequence voluntarily. I have never told this to anyone. I have never told anyone what his face looked like when he turned. He stops the entry before he writes what Harad's face looked like when he turned. He is not ready for that. He may never be ready for that. He is a lamenter and he endures, but he does not know after 11 years, and the 47 names and the impossible atmosphere in a sealed room, and his own name scratched into a dead crew member's locker. Whether endurance has a flaw, a point below which it ceases to function and becomes something else. He files the incomplete notation. He closes the locker. He turns away from the bunks. He needs to find the patient thing. The radiation signature leads him toward the ship's heart. He follows it the way a tracker follows a trail, using the chassis sensor array to take point readings every 20 meters, triangulating, adjusting his route through the ship's mid-decks as the signal strength increases. The Enduring Lament's corridors are familiar to him, in the way that a long imprisonment makes a space familiar. Not comfortable, not welcoming, but known. He knows where the deck plating buckled slightly in the third year when a minor pressure variance ran through the hull. He knows where the secondary lighting never worked, even when the ship was crewed, because the conduit for that section ran behind a structural member that no one ever prioritized rerouting. He knows the ship the way you know a body you cannot leave. The signal leads him to the reclusium. He stops in the corridor outside it and confirms what his sensor readings have been implying for the last 4 minutes. The reclusium door is sealed, physically intact, no damage, the locking mechanism engaged. The lock requires a chaplain's Crozius key to disengage, a shaped resonance input, chapter-specific, not duplicable by standard means. The Enduring Lament's chaplain was Brother Ossian. Ossian died at the Siege of Shattered Throne, 12 years before the drift began. His Crozius was returned to the chapter vault, as is tradition. There is no Crozius key on this ship. The door is locked from the inside. The radiation is emanating from behind it, not diffusely, in pulses, slow, measured, consistent. He runs a timing analysis because he needs the precision of it, needs to know the interval exactly rather than approximately, and the timing analysis returns a result that he verifies 3 times before he accepts it. The interval is 1.067 seconds, plus or minus 0.002 seconds of variation across 41 measured pulses. The resting heart rate of a healthy adult human male is between 60 and 100 beats per minute. At the low end, 1 beat per second. At 1.067 seconds per pulse, this radiation is emanating at a rate of 56.2 pulses per minute, slightly below resting rate, the rate of a sleeping body, the rate of something at rest, deeply at rest, waiting in the dark behind a locked door. He stands in the corridor for a time he does not measure. Then he raises his fist. He is a Redemptor Dreadnought. His chassis strength rating exceeds 40 tons of force application. The door is adamantium reinforced plating, and he has had 11 years and nothing to do but exist in this machine, and he knows exactly how hard he can hit, and he knows the door will not survive the first blow. He has made this calculation without deciding to make it, the way soldiers make survival calculations, automatically, ahead of the moment, so that when the moment comes, the thinking is already done, and what remains is only the doing. He drives his fist toward the door. His arm stops. Not at the door, not at the moment of impact. 8 centimeters from the surface, his arm stops. He can feel the intent moving through his nervous system. The signal is firing. The nerve cluster interfaces are transmitting it. The instruction is unambiguous and clearly issued, and the chassis is not responding to it. He runs the system diagnostic immediately, looking for the mechanical failure, the actuator fault, the hydraulic interruption that would explain this. The diagnostic returns clean, full function across all movement systems, no faults detected. His arm is 8 centimeters from the door and will not move. He has not lost control of the machine. That is the precise and terrible formulation that his notation system generates when he tries to describe what is happening. He has not lost control. The machine has simply stopped prioritizing his instructions. Something else has submitted an instruction that the machine has ranked above his, something with access to the chassis command architecture that should not exist, something that has had 11 years to learn the ship and the silence and the sarcophagus, to move slowly through decks and corridors and sensor ranges, to take readings to make sure of things. The pulse rate changes. He measures it because measuring is what he does. 1.067 seconds per beat becomes 0.89 seconds, then 0.76, then 0.71. The radiation pulses are accelerating. Behind the locked door, in the dark of the reclusium, something that breathes at the pace of a sleeping body has woken to something faster, something that is no longer sleeping. He cannot tell from the data alone whether the acceleration indicates alarm or anticipation. In his experience, and he has pressed his experience into service for every analysis this ship has demanded of him, the physiological signature of fear and the physiological signature of excitement are, at the mechanical level, identical. He stands in the corridor with his fist 8 centimeters from a door he cannot open and cannot move away from, and he listens to the thing behind the door beating faster, and he does not know which one it is. He is not certain it matters. Chapter 3. The 47th name. His arm moved again at 0340 ship time, not because he willed it to, because something else did. He has been standing in the corridor outside the reclusium for an interval he estimates at 6 hours. He stopped estimating precisely at some point in the 3rd hour, when the notation entries began to feel less like data collection and more like a man talking to himself in a dark room, which is of course exactly what they have always been, which is a thought he has avoided for 11 years and is finding increasingly difficult to avoid now. The arm moves. He records it. The arm stops. He records that. The door holds. He records the force applied, the structural tolerance of the door, the projected number of additional impacts before failure. The numbers are precise. The precision is the last room in the house and the walls are thinning. The first independent movement completed his original intention. His fist connected with the reclusium door at 0041 ship time, approximately, with the full force his chassis could generate. The sound was immense in the dead corridor. The door held. The locking mechanism held. Whatever the Crozier seal does to adamantium-reinforced plating, it does it comprehensively, and he notes this in the notation the way you note a wall you cannot go through. Acknowledgement, no resolution, move to the next line. He tried again voluntarily, immediately after. Nothing. The arm hung at his side with perfect mechanical obedience, every system reading green, every actuator responsive in the diagnostic environment and absent in the application environment, and he stood in the corridor and understood for the first time with his whole body, with whatever remains of his body, what it means to be countermanded inside your own skin. He has been countermanded by superior officers. He has been countermanded by tactical necessity, by terrain, by the arithmetic of a battle that has turned. He has never been countermanded by himself, by the machine that is himself, by whatever is operating the machine that is himself on a schedule, and with a purpose he cannot access and cannot interrupt, and can only measure from the outside the way you measure weather, descriptively, impotently, after the fact. The arm moved 4 more times in the 6 hours, irregular intervals, as noted, each impact slightly harder than the last, the door sustained. He has calculated that at the current rate of force increase, the door will fail in approximately 3 more impacts. He has not attempted to move away from the corridor. He has considered it. The consideration was brief and somewhat academic, because when he issued the instruction to turn and walk back toward the foresection, his legs provided the same quality of non-response as his arm. He can move his head. He can operate his sensor arrays. He can file notation entries to a dead network that no one will ever read. He cannot leave the corridor. He is being kept here. Whatever is inside the reclusium is keeping him here, outside its door, waiting, and he does not know what he is waiting for. And the not knowing is the corridor, and the corridor is 11 years long, and this is simply more of the same thing, in a slightly more acute form. He files that observation. He does not find it comforting. The Vox signal arrives at 0347, 7 minutes after the arm's last movement. He is already at full sensor attention when it comes, already monitoring the command frequency with the hypervigilance of a man who has received one impossible transmission and is therefore positioned to receive the second one as evidence rather than anomaly. Evidence can be built into a case. A case can be filed. Filing is the action available to him. The voice is Cale's. He knows this immediately and without doubt, the way you know a voice you have heard thousands of times across decades of shared service, in briefing rooms and dropships, and in the specific controlled chaos of active engagements where voices are the only reliable data, where you learn to hear rank and intent and fear and steadiness all at once in the timbre and cadence of a familiar voice calling through Vox static. He trained himself to know Cale's voice the way a commander trains himself to know all his sergeants' voices. He succeeded. He has not heard it in 11 years. He knows it the moment it arrives. Cale is reciting the pre-engagement litany. The litany of the Lamenters is not the litany of other chapters. Other chapters pray for victory. Other chapters invoke the Emperor's light and ask for strength and the defeat of enemies and the protection of the Imperium's faithful. These are not dishonest prayers. They are the prayers of chapters who believe, at some level, that the universe can be won. The Lamenters do not believe this. They have never believed this. Their litany does not ask for victory. It does not ask for protection. It asks for the endurance to continue past the point where continuance makes sense, and it asks this not from the Emperor as a distant authority, but from themselves, from the accumulated dead of their chapter's history, from the weight of every lamenter who continued when they should have stopped and died when they did stop, which is to say, every lamenter who has ever lived. Cale recites it in the cadence he always used, slightly slower than the standard tempo, deliberate, as if each word is being placed rather than spoken, as if the litany is a structure being built in real time and the building of it is the point. Voss has heard this cadence 10,000 times. He has heard it before planetfall and before boarding actions, and before the specific silence that precedes an engagement, when the drop pods are sealed and the engines are firing, and there is nothing left to do but be ready or not be ready. And Cale's voice was the thing that made ready possible. We do not march toward glory, for glory is not ours to claim. We march because the march is ours, and the ending is not yet. We carry what the dead have left, the weight of names, the debt of breath. We do not ask for mercy. We have never asked for mercy. We ask only for the next step, and the step after, and the step after that, until there are no more steps, and we have given all there is to give. and the chapter's heart, though broken, has not stopped. Voss stands in the corridor and listens to a dead man's voice recite the words that held the company together for 20 years, and he does not file a notation entry. He does not run a source analysis. He does not measure the signal interval or catalogue the cipher signature or cross-reference the vocal pattern against archived recordings. He listens. He listens because it is Kale, and because Kale is dead, and because the litany is true. It has always been true. It was true before Kale died, and it is true in this dead corridor, and it will be true when this ship has drifted past the edge of any map anyone will ever draw. And the truth of it does not care whether the voice speaking it is alive or dead, or something else entirely. Truth does not require a living vessel. The litany plays for 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Then it stops. The frequency returns to silence. The silence where Kale's voice was is the specific shaped silence of an absence, the silence that has the outline of something in it. And Voss stands inside that outline and understands, with the clarity that has always been both his gift and his damage, that he has just experienced the most human moment he has had in 11 years, and that it came from a dead man's voice on a dead ship, and that this fact does not diminish it at all. He files the notation entry. It is the shortest entry in 11 years. Kale, 0347, the litany. He always had the tempo right. He replays the visual scan of the crew quarters, not the memory protocol, a voluntary retrieval of his own optical sensor recording from the sweep he conducted, stored in chassis memory, played back at standard speed. He is looking for something specific, and he finds it in the 47th locker, in the detail he registered at the time and filed without fully examining, because the memory protocol initiated and took him away from it before he could sit with what he was seeing. He sits with it now. 46 names, scratched deep in high Gothic, in hands that vary slightly across the lockers, as if done by different people at different times, which he has already noted and catalogued and filed, without yet asking what it means that the hands vary, what it means that the names appear to have been inscribed, not all at once, but incrementally, as if each one arrived separately, as if the company's dead came to this room one by one and wrote themselves into the metal and left. 46 names in those hands. The 47th name is different, smaller than the others, the letters more compact, more careful, as if the hand that made them was being precise rather than emphatic. The high Gothic is correct, the script is clean, the letter forms are accurate, but the quality of the inscription is different from the 46 that preceded. Those names were cut with force, with the pressure of something that needed to leave a mark. The 47th name was written with the patience of someone who had time to be careful. The hand that wrote it is not the hand of any of the 46. He knows this from the stroke analysis his sensor system provides when he requests it. 46 distinct inscription patterns in the other lockers, each one unique. The 47th is a 48th pattern, a hand he does not recognize from the scan data. The name is his own, Aldric Voss. He processes this for a long time. He is on the list of the dead. He has been on the list of the dead since before the drift, or during the drift, at a point he cannot determine because the chronometer is lying, and has always been lying, and the compounding error means he cannot place anything precisely in the timeline of this ship's silence. He is on the list, and the hand that wrote him onto it is different from the hands that wrote the others, and the difference is patience. And patience is what he named the thing that has been moving through the ship, and both of those facts are in his notation system, and he has not, until this moment, placed them beside each other and looked at what they become when they are adjacent. The patient thing wrote his name. The patient thing knew he was dead, knows he is dead, has known it longer than he has, or has known it differently, or is operating from a definition of dead that is not the definition he has been using, and perhaps the definitions are the problem. Perhaps alive and dead are not the categories that apply here in the way he has always applied them. Perhaps inside a sarcophagus in the deep void with a compounding chronometer error, and a corrupt memory protocol, and a chassis that moves when it is not instructed to move. The categories require revision, and the revision requires him to ask a question he has not asked. He asks it. Did he order the retreat because it was tactically correct? The silence in the corridor is total. Kale's voice is gone. The arm is still. The radiation behind the reclusium door pulses at its slow, resting rate. Everything is quiet, and he is asking the question, and the question is just sitting there in the notation system, half-filed, cursor blinking, waiting for him to continue the entry with the word that comes after the question mark, the word that is the answer, the word he has not said in 11 years. He accepted the interment. He accepted it because the chapter master offered it as honor, and because honor was what he needed it to be, and because the alternative to it being honor was for it to be punishment. And punishment was the word he could not allow to be attached to him. Not because he did not deserve it, but because deserving it meant acknowledging why he deserved it. And acknowledging why he deserved it meant saying the thing he saw in Harad's face when Harad turned around. The wall that has held for 11 years has 47 names scratched into it. 47. His own included, and it is thinning. He does not complete the notation entry. He closes the file. He does not have an answer he is willing to give yet. He is a lamenter, and he has never learned to stop, but he has also never learned to say the true thing cleanly, without armor, and he does not know if he has enough left to learn it now. He is still forming that thought when the reclusium door opens, not because his arm forced it. The arm is at his side, motionless, exactly where it was. The door opens from the inside, the locking mechanism disengaging with the clean, resonant sound of a Crozius key turning in a lock that has not moved in 11 years. A sound with no mechanism behind it. A sound from a key that is in a chapter vault light years from here. And yet, the radiation stops. He measures the cessation the way he measures everything, precisely, immediately, with the full attention of a system that has been monitoring this signal for weeks. The heartbeat pulse does not slow down and stop. It simply is not there between one measurement and the next, as if it was never there, as if the patient thing has stopped needing to breathe. The silence that follows is the loudest thing he has experienced in 11 years of silence. It has mass. It presses against the sensor arrays the way atmosphere presses against a hull, with the weight of everything that is not making a sound. In the doorway of the reclusium stands a shape. He runs the sensor suite: optical, thermal, radiation, mass displacement, atmospheric pressure differential. He runs everything available to him, and everything returns data, and the data is internally consistent and fully functional, and the shape is not in it. The sensors are not failing. The shape is standing 2 meters in front of him, and his sensors are working perfectly, and the shape is not registering as matter, not as darkness, not as interference, not as a gap in the data. It is simply a thing that is present, and that the instruments, which are accurate, do not know how to measure. He does not file a notation entry. For the first time in 11 years, he does not file a notation entry. He stands in the corridor and looks at the thing his sensors cannot name. And it looks back. Chapter 4. What guilt becomes. It wore Brother Kale's face, not as a disguise, as a gift. He understands this immediately, and the understanding is the worst part. A disguise is something you see through. A disguise is a manipulation, a lie dressed in familiar clothing, and he has spent his life learning to see through manipulation. It is one of the primary skills of command, the ability to identify what a thing is beneath what it presents as. He would have known how to respond to a disguise. He would have had the architecture for it, the disciplined hostility, the refusal to engage on the entity's terms. A disguise he could have managed. This is not that. The entity is standing in the doorway of the Reclusium in Kale's body, in a body that is Kale's body the way memory is the original moment, which is to say completely and not at all, which is to say it has every detail right and no detail is quite real, and it is not pretending to be Kale. It is not performing Kale for an audience it hopes to deceive. It is offering Voss the only thing it could offer that would mean anything after 11 years of silence in the dark, the specific, irreplaceable shape of someone he lost. It knows what he needs. It has had 11 years to learn what he needs. It has been patient. The face is right. The way Kale stood is right. The slight forward lean, the weight distributed to the left, the consequence of an old injury to his right knee that Kale never had treated because treating it would have required admitting it existed, which would have required admitting that flesh was fallible, which Kale found philosophically inconvenient. Voss had known about the knee for 15 years and never mentioned it, and Kale had known that Voss knew and never mentioned that. And this is the kind of knowledge that accumulates between soldiers across decades of close service. The knowledge that has no tactical value and no formal category, and is simply the residue of one person paying sustained attention to another. The entity has this knowledge. The entity knows about the knee. It leans left, just slightly, exactly as Kale leaned. Voss does not file a notation entry. He has not filed one since the door opened. The notation system is still running. He can feel its readiness, the cursor waiting, the file open, and he cannot bring himself to reduce this to entries, to process it into the clean language of measurement and observation. He is not observing. He is standing in a corridor, looking at something wearing the face of a man he loved, in the specific way you love the people who stand beside you in the worst places, and the word for what he is feeling is not in his notation vocabulary. It speaks. Aldric. The voice is Kale's. Not a recording, not a reconstruction with audible seams. The voice as he remembers it, which means the voice as it lived in him, which means the entity has not replicated a sound, but has found the copy of Kale that Voss has been carrying for 11 years and is speaking from inside it. How long, it says, have you been here? The question is not tactical. It is not the opening of a negotiation. It is the question you ask someone you have found after a long separation. Not asking for a number, asking for the weight of it, asking how the time landed on him, asking with the voice of someone who already knows but wants him to say it, wants him to finally say it to a face that can receive it. He says, 11 years, approximately. The approximately is the last piece of armor he has. He uses it automatically, without deciding to, and he hears himself use it and recognizes what it is. The entity, Kale, nods. The nod is exactly right. The small, slow acknowledgement of someone absorbing a significant thing without performing the absorption. You've been keeping the notation, it says. Yes, every day. Every day. A pause. In the pause, the reclusium behind the entity is dark. Not the darkness of an unlit room, but the darkness of a space that has forgotten what light is, has been dark for so long that light would be the anomaly. From where he is standing, he cannot see anything beyond the doorway. Only the dark, and in it, the faint suggestion of the shape of something very old. That is, the entity says, the most Lamenter thing I've ever heard. And because it is Kale's voice saying it, and because it is true, and because 11 years of notation filed to a dead network is genuinely and specifically the most Lamenter thing anyone has ever done, Voss finds the nearest equivalent he has left to laughter, which is a long exhale through the Vox grill that sounds like grief and maybe is, and the entity receives it the way Kale always received things, without comment, without making it into more than it is. This is the pull. This is exactly the pull. Not the face, not the voice, not even the knee. This, the quality of being received, of existing in the presence of someone who knows the specific texture of you and does not require you to explain yourself. He has not had this in 11 years. He has had silence and notation, and the chronometers lie, and 47 names in a dead crew's lockers. And now he has this, and the desire to stay in it is not weakness. It is 11 years of being alone in a machine in the dark. He stays very still and does not close the distance. You saw Harad, the entity says. It does not frame this as a question. It states it the way you state a fact, that both parties have known for a long time, and that one party has been waiting for the other to be ready to speak aloud. Voss says nothing. You saw what he was, it continues, before the others did, before he knew you saw. You were 42 meters out and he turned, and you were the only one with the angle on his face, and you saw exactly what was looking back at you through his eyes. The corridor, the ash, the signal source 7 meters ahead, Harad's weight shifting, the turn. You knew in that moment what it meant. If you reported it, the Inquisition would take the company, possibly the chapter. You were watching the Lamenters' destruction, what remained of them, what they had scraped back together after Badab, after the losses, the fragment of a chapter trying to become a chapter again. And you saw how it could end. One report, one honest account of what you saw in Harad's face. He knows this is true. He has always known this is true. It lives in the sealed engram file behind the notation he never completes. So you ordered the retreat, the entity says, without explanation, without the truth. You let the chapter record it as tactical judgment, a captain reading a deteriorating situation and withdrawing to preserve his force. And 46 men held the line you withdrew from and died on it, and Harad died with them, in the ruins of Sorrow's Reach, and whatever had been looking through Harad's eyes went back to wherever it waits, and the chapter was spared. The silence in the corridor is absolute. You saved the chapter, it says, and you have been punishing yourself for it for 11 years, in a machine that cannot feel, on a ship that cannot answer, in a void that cannot care, and no one knows. Not the chapter master who ordered your interment, not the chaplain who performed the rites, not the notation system that has been reading your entries for 11 years without once giving you anything back. He says, I know. Yes, the entity says. You know. You have always known. And knowing has been the sarcophagus inside the sarcophagus. He does not argue with this. He cannot. It is the truest thing anyone has said to him in 11 years, and it is being said by something that is not Kyle. In Kale's voice, in the dark of a dead ship, and the truth of it does not care about the vessel carrying it, any more than the litany cares whether the voice reciting it is living or dead. I can end this, the entity says. The register changes, not dramatically. It does not become threatening, does not drop the warmth, does not reveal some monstrous intention beneath the tenderness. It simply becomes direct, patient and direct, in Kale's voice, with Kale's lean and Kale's face, looking at him with an expression he recognizes as the expression of a man who has considered a problem carefully and arrived at the most reasonable solution. Not death. I want to be precise about what I'm offering. Death is not available. You've suspected this for years. You've filed the notations. You know the sarcophagus will sustain your tissue through damage that would end any other body. What I am offering is release from the specific things that are destroying you while keeping you alive. It pauses. It is giving him time to understand the geometry of the offer before it describes it. The memory protocol. I can end the cycling. The retreat will stop replaying. Harrod will stop turning. Kale will stop dying on the Vox 40 times a day, in the exact register of a man who believed his captain was making the right decision. He had not known how much he needed someone to say that last part. He files this reaction without examining it. The chronometer. I can resolve the error. You will know exactly how long you have been here, exactly what time it is, exactly how many days remain until, well, until whatever comes next. The uncertainty will end. He says nothing. He is listening with every system available to him because the offer is real, and the offer is in Kale's voice. And Kale's voice telling him that the replays will stop is the most devastating sentence he has heard since the retreat, and he is listening to it with the part of himself that has been playing the retreat on a loop for 11 years, and is so profoundly exhausted by it that the word end is the most beautiful word in any language. All it requires, the entity says, is that you open the chassis. Disengage the sarcophagus seals from the inside. You have the access. You have always had the access. The seals were designed to be operator-controlled in extremis. Open them, and accept what has been here with you. In the radiation, in the reclusiam, in the dark between the machine and what remains of your body. It has been patient. It will continue to be patient. But it would like to come in. The offer sits in the corridor between them. It is not unreasonable. That is the horror of it. It is genuinely not unreasonable. 11 years of replays ending. The chronometer corrected. The specific intimate torture of uncertainty resolved. The company's dead still dead as they will always be, nothing changing that. But the daily rehearsal of the moment he failed them, the daily reattendance at their deaths, that ending. Voss standing down from a post he has been holding alone in the dark for 11 years, for no one, against nothing, with nothing to show for it. He is exhausted. He wants the record to carry that. He has been enduring for 11 years, and endurance is not free. It costs something each time, and the cost has been compounding longer than the chronometer error, and he is not certain how much remains. He says, no, not from faith. He released faith on sorrow's reach, in the moment before he gave the order, in the moment when he understood that the universe was going to cost him something it had no right to take, and take it regardless, because the universe does not require permission and does not respond to prayer, and is not, in any meaningful sense, listening. Not from duty. He knows what dereliction is. He has been derelict. He filed his dereliction in notation entries to a dead network and called it maintenance, and the lie was thin enough to see through from the beginning. He says no because he is a lamenter. Because lamenters do not stop. Not because stopping is wrong. He has long since released the clean moral architecture of wrong and right as operative categories. Not because the chapter requires it. The chapter does not know he exists. Not because anyone is watching or will know or will record it in any honor roll that will outlast this ship's drift into nothing. He says no because the next step is the only thing he has ever actually owned. Not the retreat, not the 46 names, not the 11 years, not the truth he has never said aloud. Those all belong to history and guilt, and the patient thing's patient accumulation of leverage. The next step belongs to him. The refusal belongs to him. The no, plain and small and costing more than anything he has spent in 11 years, belongs to him. I know, the entity says, and it does know. That is the final terrible intimacy of it. It knows the shape of his refusal, the way it knew about Kale's knee, the way it knew about the retreat, the way it has known everything, because it has been here with him in the dark, and it is not surprised, and it is not angry. It nods. Slowly in Kale's body, with Kale's face, with the expression of a man receiving an answer he expected and respects. It steps back into the reclusium. The dark receives it. The door begins to close. He watches Kale's face until the door takes it from him. The door seals. In the silence, he hears it. A sound from below, from the lower sarcophagus housing. A sound so small and mechanical and precise that it takes him 0.4 seconds to identify it. The seal is disengaging. Not a seal he opened. Not a seal with a fault in the diagnostic. He runs the diagnostic in the same 0.4 seconds, and it returns clean. The seal is functioning correctly. The seal is doing exactly what it is designed to do when the correct keys are applied. The seal requires two keys, an internal operator key, which he controls, and an external key, which was removed from his chassis at interment and locked in a chapter vault that is light years from this corridor. The external key is turning from the outside. Something is on the outside of his sarcophagus, something that has the key, something that has been inside the chassis perhaps, or alongside it, or woven through the interface between his dying tissue and the machine. For a duration, the compounding chronometer error will not let him calculate. And it has waited through 11 years and 47 names, and a door that opened from the inside, and an offer he refused, and now it is done waiting. He does not know what he will find when the seal finishes turning. He does not know how long he has. He does not know if the refusal meant anything at all, or if it was simply the last notation entry, precise and honest, and filed to nothing. The seal turns. He is perfectly conscious. He is perfectly aware. He cannot stop it. Chapter 5. The thing that walks out. The seal finished turning at 0412. By 0413, Aldric Voss understood that he had never been the one the ship was waiting for. Nothing comes in. He had braced for entry, had oriented every sensor array toward the seal housing, had prepared the notation entry, had positioned himself in the only way available to him, which is to say, mentally, the way you position yourself before an impact you cannot avoid. The way soldiers learn to receive the thing that is coming, by turning toward it rather than away. He had turned toward it. He was ready for whatever came through the seal. Nothing came through. The seal disengaged cleanly, the mechanism completing its rotation with the precise finality of a well-maintained lock, and the housing opened, and nothing entered. Something left. He feels it go. That is the only accurate description, and he knows how inadequate it is, and files it anyway, because inadequate is what he has. Inadequate language for a thing that has no category in his notation system, no reference in his tactical library, no precedent in 39 years of warfare across a dozen worlds. A pressure he had not registered as a presence until its absence hollows out the space where it was. It lived in the interface, not in the ship, not in the reclusium, not in the radiation signature, not in the crew quarters with the 47 names. Those were symptoms, outward legibility, the patient thing making itself readable to him in the only language he had left, which is the language of data and observation and clinical notation. The actual residency was here, in the narrow, intimate space between what remains of his biological tissue and the machine surrounding it. In the nerve cluster connections, where the sarcophagus and his nervous system dissolved the boundary between them so long ago that neither he nor the machine has a clear record of where one ends. It has been here since, he does not know since when, since the interment possibly, since before the drift, since the moment on Sorrow's Reach when Harad turned perhaps, when something in the ruins of that world identified Aldric Voss as a vessel worth the patience of occupying, and followed him home through the warp transit, and the Badab aftermath, and the chapter master's solemn offering of the sarcophagus as honor, and settled into the interface, and waited. 11 years, feeding on the memory replays, on each cycling of the retreat, on the sound of 46 voices going silent on the Vox one by one, on the specific renewable suffering of a man who cannot stop the machine from showing him what he lost and what he chose and what those two things cost, feeding on the chronometer's compounding error, on the intimacy of not knowing exactly how long you have been in the dark, feeding on the 47 names and the litany and the question he could not answer and the notation entries filed to nothing. He had been sustaining it, all of it, every act of endurance, every notation entry, every refusal to stop. He had been feeding it, and it had been growing, and it is now ready, and it is gone from the interface the way a thing leaves when it no longer needs the shelter. The vacuum it leaves behind is the shape of 11 years. The chassis begins to change. He observes this through his own sensor feeds, the only perception of his body available to him, and he observes it with the full attention of a man who has nothing else to do, which is to say, completely, which is to say, he misses nothing. The adamantium plating of the Redemptor chassis is not warping, it is not deteriorating. He had expected deterioration. The visual grammar of corruption in the 40K canon is distortion, extrusion, the wrong angles asserting themselves, matter becoming something it should not be through visible violation. This is not that. The chassis is resolving. The plating is becoming more precise. Each surface clarifying, the micro-irregularities of 11 years of thermal cycling and minimal maintenance, smoothing themselves without tool or hand, as if the machine is achieving a standard it has been working towards since manufacture and has only now reached the conditions necessary to complete. The joint housings are tighter, the optical arrays are sharper, his visual resolution is increasing, which should not be possible given the power state, which should not be possible at all. The chassis is improving. The chassis is becoming more fully itself than it has ever been. He catalogues the Lamenter iconography on his own chassis surface and finds it intact. The bleeding heart on the breastplate, the chapter's central image, the heart that has always bled, the wound that defines them, is there. Every detail present. He examines it carefully because he needs to know, and when he finds the change, he almost misses it, because it is small, and the smallness is the point. The blood is rising, not falling, not the downward run of grief and loss that the image has always carried. The blood that falls, because it cannot stop falling, because the heart that is wounded does not close, because the lamenters have always understood that some wounds are permanent, and the only honest response to them is to depict them without resolution. That blood has always fallen. This blood is rising, slowly, with the patience of something that has waited a long time to move in the direction it was always meant to move, rising towards something. The image is the same. The meaning is inverted. He files no notation entry. He looks at his own chest and sees the emblem of his chapter moving in the wrong direction, and understands that the wrong direction is not wrong for what he is becoming, that for what he is becoming this is the correct direction, the true direction, the direction the image was always pointing toward in a future that has now arrived. He is still here. He is still watching. That is the promise the entity kept, in the most terrible way available to it. He has, he calculates, a limited interval before the thing that is now operating the chassis alongside him, or instead of him, or through him. The prepositions are all wrong. Language was not built for this. Before it is fully oriented, and the enduring lament is underway, before whatever comes next begins in earnest, he uses the interval. He opens every available Lamenter Vox frequency, not the command channels, all of them. The tactical bands, the emergency frequencies, the chapter-specific ceremonial channels used only for the interment of the dead and the raising of the new. He opens them all, and he begins to transmit. This is Captain Aldric Voss, 4th Company, Lamenters. Chassis designation, Redemptor Theta 9. Transmitting from the strike cruiser, Enduring Lament, current position unknown, last recorded position. Deep void, 5 degrees off the maelstrom's outer boundary, approximately 11 years drift. He pauses. He has filed notation entries for 11 years. He knows how to compose for clarity and record keeping. This is not a notation entry. This is the last thing he will say that is entirely his, and he is not composing it for clarity. He is composing it for truth, which is a different standard and harder to meet. I am going to tell you what happened at Sorrow's Reach. I am going to tell you all of it. Not the version in the after-action record, which is accurate in its facts and false in its meaning. The true version. I should have transmitted this 11 years ago. I should have said it before the interment. I should have said it in the ruins of that world, to my chaplain, to my chapter master, to anyone who would have listened. I did not. I am saying it now. He tells them about Harad. He names him fully. Brother Harad Sen, 4th Company, Lamenters, 61 years of service. The chapter's most decorated surviving veteran at the time of the Sorrow's Reach deployment. A soldier whose name appears in 14 commendations in the chapter's honor record, and who gave himself to something in the ruins of a dead world, and smiled at his captain across 42 meters of ash-covered floor, while 7 meters of rubble stood between him and whatever he had already become. He tells them what he saw in Harad's face. He uses the words he has never used. He does not soften them. He tells them about the choice, the 46 brothers, the line they held and the men the line cost. He states clearly that the retreat was not a tactical judgment, and that he has known this for 11 years and said nothing. And he states clearly why. The Inquisition, the chapter, the impossible arithmetic of a truth that would have ended what little remained of the Lamenters, against a truth that ended 46 men. And he does not ask them to understand the arithmetic. He does not ask them to forgive it. He states it because the record should contain it, and the record is the only thing that will outlast what he is becoming. He names every man in the company, all 46, in the order they appear in his tactical memory, which is the order they deployed, which is the order he last saw them alive. He says each name once, clearly, on every open frequency, into the void that may or may not carry them to anyone living. The Enduring Lament should be destroyed on sight. Exterminatus level priority. No boarding, no salvage, no investigation. Whatever is on this ship is not a thing that benefits from investigation. Destroy the ship, destroy the chassis. Whatever remains of me inside it is not a sufficient reason not to. He pauses again. The chassis is moving now, not by his instruction. Walking with his precise gait, the gait of a Lamenter captain who has walked into every worst place the galaxy offered and walked out of most of them, toward the forward observation deck. He is watching through his own optical feeds as the corridors of the Enduring Lament pass around him, and he cannot stop the walking, and he has a few seconds left before the transmission must end. He recites the litany, not Kale's cadence. The older one, the founding prayer, the one that predates the Badab War and the cursing and most of the losses, the one written when the chapter was new and already knew what it was, already understood the specific doom of being a lamenter in a universe that had decided what lamenters were for. He recites it without performance. He recites it the way you say true things when there is no one left to say them to, and you say them anyway, because the saying is the point, because the chapter's heart, though broken, has not stopped. The transmission ends. The Enduring Lament is moving, not the standard drives. Those have been cold for 8 years and remain cold. Something older has engaged, something that was not in the ship's manifest when it launched, something that does not appear in any system log Voss can access, because it does not exist in any system Voss can access. The ship is moving with the quiet certainty of a thing that knows where it is going. He consults the navigational feed. A system inhabited. Population figures unavailable from his position, but the stellar classification and the presence of the system on pre-drift charts indicates a colonial world, mid-tier. The kind of world that exists in the Imperium's vast middle distance, too established to be frontier, too remote to be protected. The kind of world that does not expect a derelict strike cruiser with cold transponders and a dead crew to emerge from the void and make for its orbital approach. The Redemptor walks to the observation deck. The viewport is the largest transparent surface on the ship, a slab of armor glass 3 meters wide, framing the void ahead. He stands before it and looks out. The stars are beautiful. He registers this observation and immediately registers the registration, turns it over, examines where it came from. He has not found the stars beautiful in 11 years. He has found them consistent, reliable navigational references, data points in a spatial coordinate system. He has found them indifferent. He has found them on the worst nights, the nights when the chronometer error felt largest and the notation entries felt most pointless, faintly cruel in the specific way that things which simply exist are cruel to things that are suffering, by continuing, by not caring, by being exactly what they are, without reference to what he needs them to be. He has not found them beautiful. He finds them beautiful now. And the finding is not his. He can tell the difference. That is the horror of it. The entity kept its promise. The clarity is intact. He is perfectly conscious, perfectly present, and the beauty he is experiencing is real. It is genuinely aesthetically real. The stars are in fact beautiful, and the thing experiencing their beauty is experiencing it truly, and it is not him. It is wearing his consciousness the way it wore Kale's face. Completely. And not at all. He is watching himself find the stars beautiful, and he cannot locate the boundary between his finding and its finding, cannot draw the line where Aldric Voss ends and the thing that walked out of the interface begins. And the inability to draw that line is the last and deepest horror, the one that has no notation entry and no tactical response and no next step that is entirely his own. The ship moves. The stars hold. He watches. The Lamenters have a saying, "We do not ask for mercy because we do not expect it." Aldric Voss had believed that once. He believed it still. He simply no longer knew who was doing the believing.